So we're going to move on, and I'm going to show you how to do an S-curve, stitching an S-curve. So when you've already pieced your D1L units, you can see this beautiful curve here. And I actually sewed my TRP lines with a white thread, unfortunately. So I'm going to mark them with a pin so that you can see them. You can see them on the back when I look at them here, TRP lines. And you can see that they match up nicely with the T template D1L. That goes with the T template unit D1L. So those TRP lines match up nicely. This is the obtuse curve. This TRP line is showing us the middle of this curve. This TRP line is showing us the point in which the curve changes direction and goes the other way. And when you sew an S curve, you always want the big fat round belly part, the obtuse curve, to be on the bottom as you're sewing, and you want this curve to be on the top. And this one is it's a tighter curve than we've been working on, so they gave us snippet marks. So before you remove any papers, you're going to want to snip on those little marks, and it's going to help your seam open up enough that you can manipulate it around that curve in the opposite direction. So just snip on those marks before you take off your paper. So now, once the paper is removed, that fabric is going to manipulate much easily. So you want to take off the papers on this curve. Otherwise you'll have a hard time trying to get it to lay around without making any folds. But don't take off the paper unless you've definitely trimmed the outside of your unit and done your TRP and snippet marks, because then you'll be stuck not knowing where to trim it. And I'm just worrying about getting right next to the curve here. I'll take these off later, off the spikes, but for right now, that's the place I need to worry about. And now you're going to match up those TRP lines with the ones on the T template. So this is a pile of many pieces, and I didn't want to sew them all each one at a time, and there's only 2 TRP lines on there, so I did a snippet in the TRP lines here and here so that I could see where the TRP line is when I go to match it up with my ones that are sewn on my unit piece. So I'm going to take one of these off the pile. I know this is stacked with the right side up. I know my paper pieced unit is right side up. And when I put them right sides together, I can see where my snippet is here. You can see that little spot. And I can match that up with the raw edge right where the pin is. And then I'm going to put my pin in there. And I'm going to put my pin on this side. So I've lined up the 2 TRP lines. The next thing to do is I'm going to work on the big curve first. So that is from this end all the way to that pin. So I need to put some glue on that smart corner that I want to match this up with. And then I can actually glue all the way along here until I get to this pin and make sure everything just gently lays in place. We're not going to stretch anything. We're just going to lay it down on that raw edge and ease it all in. And then between these 2 pins as well. That's one big gentle curve. It's going to be a super simple one to piece. The other half of this curve, however, gets much tighter, and we're going to have to pay more attention and be cautious when we're going around that part. So now I'm going to start from this outside edge with my 1/4 inch foot, and I'm going to stitch right along all the way until I get to that pin, and then I'm going to stop, remove this from the machine. Then I'm going to flip it over because we want the obtuse curve on the bottom. And then I'm going to match up this smart corner, and it looks like it's hardly a corner, but again, just like the last one we did, there is a corner here, right here. And so I'm going to match that up with glue, and then I've got to make this fit along that curve. So again, you've got to be very careful that you don't have any folds, and you can use glue. And then again, you're going to start from the smart corner and you're going to end at that pin where you ended last time. And that's how you're going to do all of the left units. When you get to doing a right unit, it's the opposite of the left. It's the other side. And again, you're going to always want to make sure that the obtuse curve is on the bottom every time you sew. But to do the right units, you actually start at the transition point where the curve changes direction, and you're going to go from the transition point to one smart corner, flip it over, go from the transition point to the other smart corner. And you'll see why once you've lined it all up. It's because you need that big curve on the bottom. So I'm going to sew this and then flip it over and sew the rest. So I'm at the machine, and I'm just going to start on my smart corner end, and I have no paper under there, so I could use a 2.4 or 5 stitch length, but I'm going to bring it down to 2.0 because I think that gives you a smoother curve. So I'm just watching the edge of my foot. That's my 1/4 inch foot. I'm going to go past that pin because it's still a curve in that same direction. And when I get to this next pin at this TRP line, that's when the curve changes its direction. So I'm going to stop there and I'm going to back tack. And I'm going to pull it off the machine. Now I've got to flip it over so that my obtuse curve is on the bottom and this curve is on the top. And this is not going to have to make it all the way to the end there. This is actually a corner. It's so hard to see. This is like a linen fabric, and this is where the point is. And that is where the point is on my fabric, so it's going to fit right in there when I use some glue like that. So I'm going to put some glue on there. It's such a wide angle. You can see it better on the batik here, but when you're looking on that linen, that phrase, you don't see it as much. So if you have a batik or a regular cotton, you'll probably be able to see it better. I really like to print on this fabric though, so I'm using this because it looks like waves. And my quilt was designed and colored to remind me of a beach called Nantasket Beach. So I like the fabric and I'm working it in. It actually gives it a little bit of texture too. So now I'm going to start from the point on this smart corner. Couple back tack stitches, and then I'm going to match up my 1/4 inch foot with the edge, and I'm going to work all the way to where that pin was, where I stopped last time. But I want to make sure that I've got everything lined up with that raw edge, and so I'm kind of manipulating the fabric, and I'm splaying my fingers out and making everything lay flat. And now I'm going to go using my tweezers here. I didn't use any glue this time because I wanted to show you that you could just do this with tweezers. then I'm going to back tack again just a tiny bit. And that is a completed S curve. So let me back up so you can see this. So here it is. The curve is going this way. It changes direction and then it goes that way. And that's how you piece an S curve. So this is all going to get pressed towards the T template. That way. So other than the other one piece they have special instructions for on page 36 of your book, they'll show you the half moon curved piecing. It's just like doing any of the other curves, except that it actually is a tight half moon curve. And you're going to take your top piece, which is your concave curve, and you're going to accordion it all together so that you can splay it out and make it go around that wedge and do your stitching. So you're going to get all your half moon curve piecing done. You're going to get all your S curve piecing done so that you can then be able to put together your corners, these corners, the queen size desert sunset corners. And then we can lay out the whole rest of the quilt and put it all together. You'll be able to put together a quarter of the quilt, and I'll do an assembly video for that at the very end.